I hadn't seen my son, Marcus, in almost 6 months. When I finally got the chance to visit, I expected a quiet weekend, just a simple dinner, catching up on life, maybe a movie night like we used to do when he was little. Instead, he said, "Come on, Dad. Let's go out. There's a local pub I want you to see. Best ribs in town." I was surprised. Marcus was never much of a bar guy. Still, I followed him. The pub was small but cozy, filled with the smell of smoked meat and beer. Wooden tables scratched with initials, a jukebox playing soft country music in the corner, and a bartender who seemed to know everyone by name. For the first hour, it felt nice. Marcus laughed, told me about his new job, ordered me a drink. For a moment, I felt like I still had my son, like he wasn't the distant, distracted man who had slowly pulled away from me over the last year. But then his phone buzzed. Marcus glanced at the screen and froze. I saw something flash across his face. Fear, or maybe guilt. He stood up too quickly. "Hey, Dad, I gotta take this," he said. Before I could reply, he was gone, slipping out the back door. I turned toward the bar, expecting to just wait until he returned. But then, something I will never forget happened. The bartender, a tall man with weathered hands, came over. He didn't smile. He didn't ask if I wanted another drink. Instead, he grabbed my arm. His grip was firm, almost desperate. "Sir," he said, leaning close so only I could hear, "you need to follow your son. Right now. If you want the truth, follow him." I blinked. "Excuse me." He looked around, lowered his voice even more. "You don't know what he's into. But you should. Go. Now." My heart started pounding. "What are you talking about? What do you mean?" But the bartender let go, turned back to wiping the counter like nothing had happened. It was as if he hadn't said a word. My drink sat in front of me, untouched. My son's phone buzzed again in the distance. I could almost hear it through the walls. I stood up so fast my chair scraped against the floor. I walked toward the restroom, not because I needed to use it, but because I needed a plan. I locked myself inside, breathing hard. Was this crazy? Should I just wait for Marcus to come back and explain? But something deep inside me, the same instinct that once woke me up when he had a fever as a baby, the same voice that told me when he was lying about sneaking out in high school, told me this wasn't a moment to ignore. I opened the small restroom window and looked out. It was just big enough for me to squeeze through. I climbed out, feeling ridiculous, my knees scraping against the frame. But when my feet hit the ground, I felt a rush of adrenaline. The night was cool, the pub lights glowing behind me. I saw Marcus up ahead, walking fast down the sidewalk, glancing over his shoulder. He didn't see me. I started following him. Each step felt heavier, like I was crossing an invisible line, from being a father who trusted to a father who needed to know the truth. 5 minutes later, Marcus turned into a narrow alley. He stopped. Another man was waiting there. I pressed myself against the wall, heart hammering, watching. The man handed Marcus something small, wrapped in brown paper. Marcus slipped him cash. I couldn't breathe. This wasn't just a phone call. This wasn't just business. And then, Marcus looked around, as if he sensed someone was there. His eyes scanned the alley. If he saw me, I didn't know what I would say. I froze, gripping the cold brick wall. My son stepped closer to the stranger, speaking words I couldn't hear. But the look on his face, serious, tense, told me this was not something I was supposed to see. I swallowed hard. Whatever this was, it was only the beginning. The night air was sharp, cutting through my jacket as I followed Marcus. My heart hadn't slowed since the moment I crawled out of that toilet window. I kept my distance, ducking behind parked cars and mailboxes, praying he wouldn't turn around. Every few steps, he glanced over his shoulder, as if he could feel someone watching. I wasn't a spy. I was a father. My knees ached, my shoes weren't made for running, but nothing could make me stop. He crossed the street and headed toward the edge of town, where the lights grew dimmer and the houses farther apart. I should have called someone. The police. A friend. But what would I even say? "Hi, yes, I think my son might be doing something illegal." No, I don't know what. A bartender told me to follow him. No one would believe me. So I kept walking. Marcus finally slowed when he reached an old wooden fence that surrounded a rundown house I'd never seen before. The grass was overgrown, the paint peeling. No lights in the windows. He slipped through a gap in the fence like he'd done it before. I waited, counting to 30, then followed. Inside the yard, the air felt heavier, like I'd stepped into a different world. I crouched low, staying near the fence line, and watched as Marcus went to the back door. He knocked, 3 times, in a strange rhythm. Someone opened the door. A shadowy figure, tall, broad-shouldered. They didn't speak, just let Marcus in. I crept closer, my shoes crunching softly on dead leaves. Through a crack in the dirty window, I saw them. Marcus sat at a table with 2 men I'd never seen before. The brown paper package was on the table. One of the men opened it. It wasn't drugs. It wasn't money. It was documents. Papers, stapled together. Marcus pointed at one of the pages, explaining something. His face was hard, focused. He looked nothing like the boy I raised. I wanted to burst through the door and demand an explanation. But I stayed where I was, frozen, watching. One of the men nodded, then handed Marcus a black envelope. My stomach turned. Marcus stood, shook hands with both men, and tucked the envelope into his jacket. He looked tense. Worried. He left through the same back door. I ducked behind a tree, holding my breath as he passed. He was close enough that I could smell the cologne I bought him last Christmas. I waited until he was gone, then crept to the back door. It was locked now. Whoever those men were, I didn't want them to know I had been there. I made my way back to the fence, but just as I stepped through the gap, "Hey!" A voice behind me. I turned. One of the men from inside was standing on the porch, staring right at me. My throat went dry. For a moment, neither of us moved. Then he stepped off the porch and started walking toward me. I ran. I hadn't run like that since my 20s. My legs burned, my lungs screamed, but I didn't look back. By the time I reached the street, I couldn't hear him anymore. I ducked into an alley and crouched behind a dumpster, gasping for air. I stayed there for several minutes, listening. Nothing. When I finally dared to step out, Marcus was gone. The street was empty, quiet except for the hum of a distant streetlight. I pulled out my phone. My hands were shaking. I wanted to call Marcus right then and there, demand to know what he was doing. But what if he lied? What if he cut me off completely? I thought about the bartender's words. You don't know what he's into. No, I didn't. But I had to find out. I made my way back toward the pub, staying in the shadows. When I got there, Marcus was waiting outside, leaning against the wall, smoking a cigarette. He hadn't smoked since college. "Dad," he said when he saw me. His tone was casual, but his eyes were sharp, suspicious. "Where'd you go? Thought you were in the bathroom." I forced a smile. "Yeah. Long line." He nodded slowly, like he didn't quite believe me. "Let's get you home," he said. On the walk back to his apartment, he was quiet. Too quiet. At one point, I caught him glancing at me, frowning like he wanted to say something but decided not to. When we got inside, Marcus locked the door, something he never did before. Then he turned to me and said, "Dad, I need you to trust me, okay? Whatever you think you saw tonight, just forget about it." My stomach dropped. "What do you mean?" I asked carefully. He smiled, but it wasn't a warm smile. It was tight, forced. "Nothing. I just mean, don't worry. Everything's fine." Then he went to his room and closed the door. I stood there, frozen. Everything was not fine. I barely slept that night. Every sound in the apartment made me flinch. In the morning, Marcus acted like nothing happened. He made coffee, asked about my plans for the day, told me he had to run errands. But when he left, I didn't stay put. Instead, I grabbed my jacket and headed back to the pub. The bartender was there, wiping glasses. When he saw me, he nodded like he'd been expecting me. "Meet me tonight," he said quietly, sliding a napkin toward me. An address was written on it. "There's more you need to know." Before I could ask a single question, another customer walked in, and the bartender went back to work like nothing happened. I stared at the napkin, my hands trembling. Whatever was happening, I was in it now, and there was no going back. That night, as I stood outside the address the bartender had given me, I had no idea that what I was about to hear would not just expose my son's secret, it would shatter my world. I didn't sleep that night. I sat on the edge of Marcus's couch, staring at the empty coffee table. He'd gone straight to bed without saying much after coming home. No jokes, no stories about work, not even a "good night, Dad." It was like he was somewhere else entirely, and I didn't know where. I replayed everything I saw in the alley over and over again. The package, the cash, the way Marcus kept looking over his shoulder, like a man with something to hide. My gut twisted. I wanted to believe it was something innocent. Maybe he was just buying some rare collectible or something for work. But then, why sneak around? Why look so scared? I sat there until the house was silent, until even the fridge's hum sounded too loud. Finally, I stood up. I wasn't going to get answers sitting here. I tiptoed to Marcus's room. The door was slightly ajar. I could hear him breathing, deep and steady. He was asleep. I stepped inside. The smell of cologne and laundry detergent hit me. His work boots were by the bed, one tipped over. His jacket was hanging on the back of a chair. That jacket. The same one he wore when he took the package. I hesitated. I'd never snooped through my son's things before, not even when he was a teenager. But tonight, it felt necessary. I reached into the jacket pocket. Nothing. My heart dropped. I checked the other pocket. Still nothing. Where was it? I looked around the room, my eyes scanning every corner. Then I noticed something under the bed, a small duffel bag. I knelt down and pulled it out slowly, careful not to wake him. The zipper was half open. Inside, I found clothes, and under the clothes, that package. I held my breath as I unwrapped the brown paper. It wasn't drugs, at least, not the kind I'd imagined. It was cash. Stacks of it. At least $20,000. Maybe more. I froze. Why would Marcus be getting this much cash in an alley? And why hide it from me? Suddenly, a floorboard creaked. I turned. Marcus was sitting up in bed, staring right at me. My stomach dropped. "Dad," he said, his voice low. "What are you doing?" I swallowed hard. I couldn't sleep. I just wanted to talk. And then I saw this, and you went through my stuff. His voice was sharp now. "Marcus, what is this? Where did you get this money?" He stood up, snatching the package from my hands. "That's none of your business," he said through clenched teeth. "None of my business," I snapped. "You're my son. You disappear into an alley, meet some stranger, come home with this, and I'm not supposed to ask questions." He glared at me. "Drop it, Dad." "I can't." We stood there, staring at each other, a silent war between father and son. Finally, Marcus turned away. "You wouldn't understand," he said quietly. "Then make me understand," I said. "Please." For a moment, he hesitated, like he wanted to tell me. But then he shook his head. "Go to bed, Dad. Just leave it alone." He stuffed the money back into the bag and shoved it under the bed again. I didn't say another word. I walked out of his room, my chest tight. But deep down, I knew I wasn't going to leave it alone. The next morning, Marcus was gone. No note. No message. I sat at the table, staring at the empty chair across from me. I had two choices. I could pack my things, go back home, and pretend none of this ever happened. Or I could find out what was really going on. I chose the second. I grabbed my coat and headed back to the pub. The bartender was there, polishing glasses like the night before. He looked up when I walked in, and he knew. He didn't even ask what I wanted. "You saw something, didn't you?" he said quietly. I nodded. I followed him. I saw him get whatever that was. And now he's gone. The bartender sighed, glancing around before motioning me closer. "Look, I don't know you. But I know your boy's been mixed up with some bad people. I've seen them come in here. They're not from around here. They don't belong. And neither does he when he's with them. What do they want from him? I asked. Money. Or worse. He leaned in closer. Whatever he's involved in, it won't end well. If you love him, you better find him before they do. My blood ran cold. Who are they? But the bartender just shook his head. People who don't like being followed. I left the pub with my mind spinning. Marcus wasn't just hiding money. He was hiding from someone. But why? I started walking, retracing the route from last night, hoping for a clue. When I reached the alley, I noticed something I hadn't seen before, a crumpled piece of paper on the ground. I picked it up. It was a receipt. From a storage facility on the edge of town. Marcus's name was on it. I stared at it, my heart pounding. If he had a storage unit, maybe that's where the rest of the truth was hiding. The facility was almost empty when I arrived. I found Marcus's unit, number 47, and stood there, staring at the padlock. I didn't have a key, but I had come too far to turn back now. I found the manager and explained I was Marcus's father. At first, he hesitated, but when I showed him my ID and told him I was worried about my son's safety, he finally agreed to open it. When the door rolled up, the smell of dust and metal hit me. Inside were boxes, dozens of them. I opened the first box. Inside were more stacks of cash. The second box, ledgers, notebooks, papers filled with numbers. And then I saw something that made my blood run cold. Photos. Marcus. With men I didn't recognize. Some of them carrying guns. One photo showed Marcus standing next to a black SUV with its trunk open, filled with more cash. I staggered back, my hands shaking. This wasn't just a little side hustle. This was something big. Something dangerous. And then I heard footsteps behind me. I turned and froze. A man was standing there. Not Marcus. Someone I'd never seen before. He smiled, but it wasn't friendly. "You shouldn't be here, old man," he said. My heart started racing. "How do you know my son?" I asked. He stepped closer. "Let's just say, he owes us. And if you're smart, you'll walk away before you owe us too." I swallowed hard, forcing myself to stay calm. "I'm not going anywhere until I know what you've dragged my son into." The man chuckled. "You think you can save him?" He made his choice. He reached past me and shut the storage unit. Then he leaned close. "Tell Marcus we're done waiting." And just like that, he walked away. I stood there in the dim hallway, my heart pounding. Marcus wasn't just in trouble. He was running out of time. And if I didn't act fast, I might lose him forever. I pulled out my phone and dialed Marcus's number. He didn't pick up. I called again. Straight to voicemail. My hands trembled as I whispered into the empty hallway, "Son, where are you?" I must have called Marcus 10 times before I finally stopped. Each time, the same result, voicemail. The last message I left wasn't calm anymore. "Marcus, call me back. I know what you're into. We need to talk before this gets worse." I didn't know if he would even listen. I stepped out of the storage facility and into the cold night air. My chest felt tight, like someone was pressing a hand against my heart. Marcus wasn't just hiding money. He was hiding from something much bigger, and I had just walked right into it. I drove back to his house, hoping he would be there. But when I walked inside, I knew something was wrong immediately. The house was too quiet. I checked the living room. Empty. His room. The bed was still unmade from the night before. Then I noticed something I hadn't seen earlier. His suitcase was gone. I sat down hard on the edge of the bed. Marcus was gone. The next morning, I went to the police. I explained everything. Well, almost everything. I didn't tell them about the cash in the storage unit or the photos. I just said my son had gone missing, that I hadn't seen him since the previous night, that I was worried for his safety. The officer at the desk was polite, but not hopeful. "Sir, your son's an adult. We can't file a missing person report until 48 hours have passed, unless there's evidence of foul play." I wanted to slam my fist on the desk. What more evidence did they need? "He's in trouble," I said. I know he is. If we wait 48 hours, it might be too late. The officer just sighed. We'll keep your report on file. Call us if you get any new information. I walked out of there feeling more alone than ever. Back at the house, I sat at the kitchen table, staring at my phone. I couldn't just sit here and wait. I needed to find Marcus myself. I remembered the man from the storage facility, the one who warned me. He didn't seem like someone who gave out second chances. If they were done waiting, that meant they were coming for Marcus. But maybe, just maybe, I could get to him first. I went back to the pub that afternoon. The bartender looked up as soon as I walked in. You again, he said. What happened? He's gone, I said. Packed up and left. Do you know where he might go? Who he might be with? The bartender hesitated, then leaned closer. Look, I shouldn't be telling you this, but there's a man named Silas. Your boy's been meeting him here a lot. Big guy, shaved head, drives a black SUV. If anyone knows where Marcus is, it's him. Where can I find him? The bartender scribbled something on a napkin, an address. Warehouse on 12th and Grove. But listen to me, you don't want to go there. Those guys play rough. I stuffed the napkin into my pocket. Rough or not, I had to go. By the time I reached the warehouse, the sun was setting. The place looked abandoned, broken windows, graffiti on the walls, an empty parking lot. But there was a single black SUV parked near the loading dock. I stayed in my car for a few minutes, watching. Then the door to the warehouse opened, and a man stepped out. Tall, shaved head. It had to be Silas. I got out of my car and walked toward him, my palms sweating. He noticed me immediately. You lost, old man, he said, his voice deep, cold. I'm looking for my son. Marcus. At the mention of the name, Silas's expression changed, just slightly. He's not here, he said. Where is he? I asked. Silas smirked. Why should I tell you? Because I'm his father, I said, my voice shaking. And I think he's in trouble. Silas laughed, not kindly. Your boy put himself in trouble. Ain't nothing you can do to save him now. I stepped closer, my fear boiling into anger. I don't care what he did. I'm not leaving until I know he's safe. Silas's smile faded. You're brave. Or stupid. I can't tell which. He turned and whistled. 2 more men stepped out of the warehouse, both bigger than him. My stomach dropped. Silas crossed his arms. You want to know where he is? Fine. But you're not gonna like it. He nodded toward the men. Show him. They led me inside the warehouse. The air was damp and smelled like oil. In the center of the room was a chair. And in that chair, Marcus. His hands were tied behind his back. His lip was bleeding. His eyes widened when he saw me. Dad, what are you doing here? I ran toward him, but one of the men blocked me. What did you do to him? I shouted. Silas shrugged. Nothing yet. But your boy owes a lot of money. Money he doesn't have. So we're keeping him here until he figures out how to pay up. I turned to Marcus, my voice shaking. What is he talking about? Marcus looked down. I borrowed money from them, Dad. A lot of money. I thought I could pay it back after a few deals, but I lost it. My head spun. Borrowed? For what? Marcus's voice cracked. To start my own business. I didn't want to ask you for help. I wanted to prove I could do it on my own. But everything went wrong. And now... Silas stepped forward. Now he belongs to us. I felt something snap inside me. No, I said quietly. Silas raised an eyebrow. No. I'm not leaving him here. Whatever he owes, I'll figure out a way to pay it back. Just let him go. Silas chuckled. That's a sweet offer. But this isn't about money anymore. Your boy's been playing both sides, and that's a problem. People like him don't get second chances. He turned to the men. Take him back to the chair. And if Daddy here tries anything stupid, tie him up too. I knew then that talking wasn't going to solve this. I had to act. As they grabbed Marcus, I made my move, grabbing the nearest metal pipe and swinging with everything I had. The pipe connected with one of the men's arms, and he dropped Marcus. "Run!" I shouted. Marcus didn't hesitate. He bolted toward the door. I swung again, forcing the other man to back off. Silas cursed, lunging at me, but I shoved him back and followed Marcus out of the warehouse. We sprinted across the parking lot, my heart hammering. Behind us, I heard shouting. Then the sound of footsteps chasing us. We reached my car, dove inside, and I peeled out of there as fast as I could. Only when we were miles away did I finally slow down. Marcus was breathing hard, staring out the window. "Dad," he said quietly, "you shouldn't have come." I gripped the wheel. "You're my son. I will always come." He turned to me, tears in his eyes. "They're not going to stop, Dad. They're going to come after us now." I nodded. "Then we'll be ready." As we pulled onto the highway, a pair of headlights appeared in the rear-view mirror. Close. Too close. My blood ran cold. "Marcus," I said, gripping the wheel tighter. "I think they found us." The headlights behind us grew brighter, closing the gap. Marcus turned around, his face pale. "It's them," he whispered. I gritted my teeth and pressed my foot harder on the gas. The car roared forward, but so did they. The road was empty except for us, just two cars speeding into the night, one trying to escape, the other hunting us down. "Dad, we can't outrun them forever," Marcus said, gripping the dashboard. "I don't need forever," I said. "Just enough time to figure out where to lose them." I scanned the road ahead. We were coming up on a fork. Left led back toward town. Right into the woods. I yanked the wheel right. The tires screeched, the car fishtailed, but I kept control. The SUV followed. "Hold on!" I shouted. We hit a narrow dirt road, dust flying up behind us. Branches scraped the sides of the car, but I didn't care. "They know these roads better than we do," Marcus said, his voice tight. "Then we better get creative," I said, forcing my brain to work through the panic. Up ahead, I saw a small bridge, wooden, old, barely wide enough for one car. "Marcus, grab the wheel for a second," I said. "What?" "Just do it." He leaned over and steadied the wheel while I reached under the seat, pulling out the roadside flare kit I always kept in the car. I struck one flare, the red light blinding in the dark, and tossed it out the window just as we crossed the bridge. The SUV swerved, its headlights flashing wildly as the driver tried to avoid the flare. For a second, it worked. They slowed down. But then they were back on our tail. "They're not stopping," Marcus said. "No," I said, my jaw tight. "But we're almost there." "Almost where?" I didn't answer. When Marcus was a kid, we used to go camping out here. There was an old service road, barely visible now, that led to a clearing near the river. I prayed it was still there. When I saw the overgrown path, I didn't hesitate. I turned hard onto it, branches snapping against the windshield. The SUV didn't turn right away. They overshot the entrance, then skidded in after us. That gave us a few precious seconds. "Marcus," I said, "when we stop, you run. Head for the river. Don't look back." "What about you?" "I'll be right behind you." "Dad, I can't just leave you." "You can and you will," I snapped. "I didn't pull you out of that warehouse just to lose you here." The clearing appeared up ahead, moonlight glinting off the river. I slammed the brakes, and we both jumped out. "Go!" I shouted. Marcus ran toward the water as I grabbed a large rock and hurled it at the SUV's windshield just as it entered the clearing. The glass cracked but didn't break. The SUV skidded to a stop. The driver's door opened. Silas stepped out. His face was calm, almost amused. "You've got fight, old man," he said. "I'll give you that." I held my ground. "You're not getting my son." Silas laughed. "You think you can stop me? This isn't about him anymore. This is about sending a message." He stepped closer, his men getting out of the car behind him. 3 against 1. I tightened my grip on the rock. If I had to go down tonight, I'd make them work for it. But then something unexpected happened. Marcus came running back. He wasn't alone. Behind him were 2 police officers, park rangers, by the look of their uniforms. "Hands up!" one of them shouted, pulling out a flashlight. Silas froze. "This is private property," the officer said. "You all need to leave. Now." Silas's jaw tightened. "This isn't over," he said, glaring at me. Then he turned and motioned for his men to get back in the SUV. They drove off slowly, the sound of their tires fading into the night. When they were gone, I finally let out the breath I'd been holding. Marcus dropped to the ground, shaking. "Dad," he said quietly, "I'm sorry." I knelt down beside him. "This isn't about apologies. It's about survival. And we're not safe yet." The officers took our statements but couldn't do much more. "We can keep an eye on this area," one of them said. "But if these guys want you bad enough, they'll find you again. You two might want to lay low for a while." I nodded. Lay low. I could do that. But I wasn't just going to hide. If Silas thought this was over, he was wrong. Back at the house, Marcus and I packed what we could. "Where are we going?" he asked. "To a place they won't expect," I said. "Dad, I can't keep running forever." I stopped and looked at him. "Then we don't run. We fight back. But we do it smart." He frowned. "What do you mean?" I held up the receipt from the storage facility. "They think they own you because of this debt. But if we can find proof of what they're really doing, proof of the deals, the money, we can take it to the police. End this for good." Marcus hesitated. "That's dangerous." "So is staying alive," I said. That night, we drove back to the storage facility. The boxes were still there. The photos. The ledgers. I started going through them, taking pictures with my phone. Marcus helped, his hand still shaking but steadier than before. "This one," he said, pulling out a notebook. "This has all the transactions. Names, dates, amounts. If the police see this, they'll have to act." "Then we get it to them," I said. I was just about to close the box when I heard a sound, a door shutting somewhere outside. I froze. Marcus looked at me, his eyes wide. "Dad." I turned off the light and motioned for him to be quiet. Through the gap under the door, I saw shadows moving. They were back. I whispered to Marcus, "We can't let them find this evidence." He nodded. We grabbed as much as we could carry, the ledger, a few of the photos, and headed for the back door. But just as we stepped outside, we saw them. Silas. And this time, he wasn't smiling. "You just don't know when to quit," he said, stepping forward. Marcus stepped in front of me. "Stay back," he said. "We have proof of everything. If anything happens to us, the police will know." Silas tilted his head. "You think that scares me?" "No," I said, my voice calm despite the fear clawing at me. "But you should be scared of what happens when you have nothing left to lose." For a moment, none of us moved. Then Silas smiled, a cold, dangerous smile. "This isn't over," he said again. And just like that, he turned and walked away. Marcus and I stood there in the moonlight, holding the evidence that could destroy Silas. But as we got back into the car, I couldn't shake the feeling that we had just crossed a line, and there was no going back. The drive back from the storage facility was silent. Marcus sat staring out the window, clutching the ledger we had taken. I could see his knuckles turning white from how tightly he was holding it. "Marcus," I said finally, breaking the silence, "we can't just keep running. We need to end this." He nodded slowly. "But how? These guys, they don't scare easy." I glanced at the passenger seat, where the photos and ledger lay. "We scare them with the truth." The next morning, I spread everything out on the kitchen table. The photos, the ledgers, the receipts. Marcus sat across from me, looking at each piece of evidence. "This is everything," he said. "It's enough to put Silas and his men away for a long time," I replied. Marcus ran a hand through his hair. "But we can't just hand this over to the police. They'll know it came from me. They'll know we broke into the storage unit." "We don't have to hand it over ourselves," I said. "We can make sure it ends up where it needs to go, anonymously." Marcus looked up at me. You've already thought this through. I nodded. Last night, when Silas said this isn't over, I knew we couldn't just wait for them to come after us again. This has to end on our terms. That afternoon, we went back to town. Our first stop was a print shop. We made copies of everything, every page of the ledger, every photo. We put the originals in a waterproof bag and hid them under the floorboards in Marcus's garage. If they find us before we're ready, I said, at least we'll still have this. Marcus looked at me with something I hadn't seen in years, respect. You always said you'd protect me, he said quietly. I meant it, I replied. Our next stop was the pub. The bartender looked up when we walked in, his eyebrows raising. Thought you two would be halfway to another state by now, he said. We're done running, I said. We need your help. He hesitated, then nodded toward the back room. Talk. We followed him into the dimly lit room, away from the other customers. What do you need? He asked. Information, I said. When and where Silas is meeting his people next. If we can catch them in the act, or at least close enough, we can tip off the police. The bartender frowned. You're playing a dangerous game, old man. Yeah, I said. But this time, I'm playing to win. 2 days later, the bartender called. They're meeting at the docks tonight, he said. Big shipment coming in. If you're going to do something, that's your chance. I hung up and looked at Marcus. This is it. He swallowed hard. What if we get caught? Then we make sure we don't. That night, we parked a few blocks from the docks and approached on foot. The air smelled like salt and diesel. The moon reflected off the water, giving everything an eerie glow. We stayed low, hiding behind crates and stacks of pallets as we moved closer. Up ahead, I saw them, Silas and his men, unloading boxes from a shipping container. And not just cash this time, weapons. My stomach turned. This wasn't just about money anymore. Marcus, I whispered, take pictures. As many as you can. He pulled out his phone and started snapping photos, careful not to make a sound. I recorded video, Silas's face, the boxes, the serial numbers on the crates. We had them. But just as I was about to signal Marcus to leave, a voice called out. Who's there? My blood ran cold. A flashlight beam swept across the dock, landing on us. Run! I shouted. We took off, weaving between crates, the sound of boots pounding behind us. Shots rang out, bullets sparking off metal. Marcus tripped, but I grabbed him, pulling him back to his feet. We dove behind a stack of pallets, my heart hammering in my chest. Dad, we're trapped. Marcus hissed. No, we're not, I said. Not if we make them think we are. I picked up a piece of scrap metal and hurled it across the dock. It clattered loudly, drawing the men in the opposite direction. Now, I whispered. We sprinted toward the fence at the edge of the dock. I boosted Marcus over first, then climbed up myself just as another shot rang out. We hit the ground on the other side and kept running until we were sure we weren't being followed. Back at the car, we collapsed against the doors, gasping for air. Marcus held up his phone. We got it, he said, breathless. They can't ignore this. I nodded, adrenaline still surging through me. But we're not done yet. We need to make sure Silas knows we have it, and that if anything happens to us, this goes straight to the police. Marcus hesitated. You want to bait him? I looked him in the eye. I want to end this. The next morning, we sent Silas a message. We used an untraceable number and attached one of the photos from the docks. The message was simple. We have everything. Leave us alone, or the police get it. Meet us tonight. No guns, no men, just you. Marcus stared at me after I hit send. You think he'll actually come alone? No, I said. But we'll be ready for whatever he brings. That night, we waited in an abandoned lot near the edge of town. I could feel my heartbeat in my throat as the black SUV pulled up. Silas stepped out, just like we expected. 2 of his men got out too, but they stayed back, near the car. You've got guts, Silas said, walking toward us. Or you're just tired of living. You don't scare me anymore, I said. Not when I know the kind of man you are. Silas smirked. "And what kind of man is that?" "The kind who's about to lose everything," I said, holding up my phone. "One button, Silas. That's all it takes to send every photo, every video, every name straight to the police." His smile faded. "You think you can threaten me?" "No," I said calmly. "I think I can end you." We stood there, staring each other down. Marcus stepped closer. "We don't want your money," he said. "We don't want anything. We just want to be left alone." Silas's jaw tightened. "You should have stayed out of this," he said. "Now I have to decide if letting you live is worth the risk." For a moment, I thought he was going to order his men to attack. But then, to my surprise, he laughed. "You've got fire, old man," he said. "I'll give you this one chance. But if you cross me again—" He stepped closer, his face inches from mine. "You won't get another." He turned, motioned to his men, and got back in the SUV. They drove off, the sound of the engine fading into the night. Marcus let out a shaky breath. "Do you think he meant it?" I watched the tail lights disappear. "No. Which is why we make sure the police still get everything." Marcus nodded slowly. "Then let's finish this." As we drove to the police station, I couldn't shake the feeling that Silas wouldn't let this go quietly. The trap was set, but who was really walking into it? The police station was quiet when we walked in. Marcus kept glancing over his shoulder like he expected Silas's SUV to pull up behind us at any second. I couldn't blame him. I felt the same way. At the front desk, a young officer looked up. "Can I help you?" "Yes," I said, setting the bag of evidence on the counter. "We need to speak to someone in charge. This is urgent." He took one look at the photos sticking out of the folder and raised an eyebrow. "Wait here." 10 minutes later, we were sitting in a small, windowless room. A detective walked in, middle-aged, tired eyes, but sharp. He introduced himself as Detective Alvarez. "You said you have evidence of a crime?" he asked, pulling up a chair. I pushed the folder toward him. "Not just a crime," I said. "A network. Smuggling, extortion, money laundering. You name it." He opened the folder, flipping through the photos, the copies of the ledger. His face hardened. "Where did you get this?" "Let's just say we were in the wrong place at the right time," I said. "And we don't care about charges against us. We just want this man, Silas, stopped." Marcus leaned forward. "If you don't do something, people are going to keep getting hurt. Including us." Alvarez closed the folder and looked at us. "You realize this puts you in danger." "We've been in danger for weeks," I said. "Consider this our way out." An hour later, Alvarez had called in a team. We gave statements, showed them the videos, the recordings. Everything was catalogued and logged. "This is enough to get a warrant," Alvarez said. "But if we go after him now, he'll disappear before we can bring him in." "So what do you do?" Marcus asked. "We watch him," Alvarez replied. "Let him make a move. And when he does, we'll be ready." For the next 2 days, we stayed at a safe house provided by the police. It felt strange, like being in witness protection before the trial even started. Marcus paced the room constantly, checking his phone every few minutes. I sat by the window, watching the empty parking lot. On the third night, Alvarez came by. "He's planning another drop," he said. "Bigger than the one you saw. We'll have enough to arrest him and seize everything." Marcus looked at me. "This is it." I nodded. "Then let's make sure he knows who brought him down." The next night, we rode in an unmarked police van to the docks. This time, there were no shadows, no hiding. We had law on our side, and numbers. The van stopped a few blocks away. Alvarez turned to us. "You stay here. When we have him in cuffs, I'll come get you." Marcus gripped my arm. "Dad, what if something goes wrong?" I squeezed his hand. "Then we make it right. Like we always do." Through the narrow window of the van, we could see the flashing lights of police vehicles as they moved in. Shouts echoed across the dock. The sound of boots on pavement, the crash of crates being dropped. Then, gunfire. Marcus's eyes went wide. They're shooting. I grabbed his shoulder. Stay down. Minutes felt like hours, but finally the gunfire stopped. The radio crackled to life. Suspects detained. Scene secure. When Alvarez opened the van door, there was sweat on his brow, but a small smile on his face. "It's over," he said. "We got him." Marcus and I followed him onto the dock. There, in handcuffs, stood Silas. He looked at me, and for a moment, just a moment, there was something like respect in his eyes. "You played a dangerous game," he said. "You should have stayed in your quiet little life." "No," I said. "I should have done this a long time ago." As they led him away, Marcus let out a shaky laugh. "We did it," he said. "For the first time in weeks, I feel like I can breathe." But then, as we were walking back toward the van, a single shot rang out. The world seemed to slow. One of Silas's men, who had been pretending to be unconscious, had pulled a hidden gun from his boot. The shot hit Alvarez's shoulder, spinning him around. The police returned fire instantly, dropping the man where he stood. Chaos erupted again. Shouting, sirens, the smell of gunpowder in the air. Marcus grabbed my arm. "Dad, we have to get out of here." But I shook my head. "No. We finish this. Tonight." Back at the station, Alvarez was patched up and furious. "That was close," he said through gritted teeth. "But it doesn't change anything. Silas is going away for a long time." Marcus sat down heavily, burying his face in his hands. "This is never going to be over, is it? There will always be someone else, some other man who wants revenge." I sat beside him. "Maybe. But we can't live in fear. We did the right thing, Marcus. And whatever comes next, we face it together." That night, back at the safe house, I stood by the window again. The sky was dark, quiet. For the first time in weeks, I didn't feel like someone was watching me. Marcus came to stand beside me. "You think we can go back to normal?" he asked. I looked at him and smiled faintly. "Normal? Probably not. But we can build something better." He nodded slowly. "For the first time in a long time, I think we can." But just as we were about to turn in, my phone buzzed. A message. No name, no number, just one sentence. "You think it's over? It's just beginning." I stared at the screen, my blood running cold. Marcus saw my face. "What is it?" I showed him the phone. His expression hardened. "Then we stay ready." I nodded. "Yes. We stay ready." The message haunted me all night. I barely slept. Every creak of the safehouse floorboards, every car passing outside made me sit up, expecting trouble. By morning, Marcus found me still sitting by the window, gripping my phone like a lifeline. "You didn't sleep, did you?" he said quietly. "No," I admitted. "I keep asking myself, who sent this? Silas is in custody. It has to be someone else." Marcus frowned. "Then we find out who. We can't keep living like this." Detective Alvarez came by later that morning, his arm in a sling. "You both look like you've seen ghosts," he said, sitting down. I handed him my phone, showing him the message. He read it, his jaw tightening. "Silas has lieutenants. Men who won't just roll over because their boss is behind bars. It's possible one of them is trying to scare you into backing down before you testify." Marcus crossed his arms. "Then we don't back down. We testify." Alvarez gave him a long look, then nodded. "I'll have a car posted outside the safe house. But you should know, if they're coming, they won't wait until court." The next 2 days were tense. We barely left the safe house except to meet with the prosecutor and finalize our statements. Every sound made Marcus jump. I tried to keep calm for his sake, but the truth was, I felt it too, the sense that we were being hunted. On the third night, it happened. A loud crash shattered the silence. Marcus bolted upright from the couch. "Dad, someone's outside." I grabbed the bat I'd kept by the door since we got here and motioned for him to stay low. Another crash, this time a window breaking. "They're coming in," Marcus hissed. Before we could react, 3 men in masks burst through the back door. One had a crowbar, another a knife, the third a pistol. "Stay quiet," the man with the gun growled, "and nobody dies." But I'd spent too many nights afraid. "Marcus, run!" I shouted, swinging the bat with all my strength. The crowbar man went down with a sickening crack. Marcus dove for the hallway, shouting for help. The gunman turned toward me, but before he could fire, I tackled him. We crashed into the table, the pistol skittering across the floor. The knife man lunged at me, but Marcus came back, holding the fire extinguisher we'd kept near the kitchen. He smashed it into the man's shoulder, sending the knife flying. The sound of sirens filled the night. The police car Alvarez had promised screeched into the driveway. Within seconds, the remaining 2 attackers were face down on the floor, handcuffed. Alvarez himself walked in, looking furious. "Are you both okay?" Marcus nodded, still breathing hard. "I think so." I leaned against the wall, heart pounding. "I told you this wasn't over." Alvarez knelt, pulling off one of the attackers' masks. The face underneath was unfamiliar, but Alvarez recognized him instantly. "That's Reggie Mason," he said. "One of Silas's top enforcers. Guess he didn't get the memo that the game's over." Marcus's hands were still shaking. "What happens to them?" "They'll be charged," Alvarez said. "And with your testimony, Silas will never see the outside of a cell again." 3 weeks later, we stood in the courtroom. Silas sat at the defense table, still calm, still smiling that same cold smile. But when the prosecutor displayed the photos, the ledgers, the videos, I saw his smile falter. Marcus took the stand first. His voice shook at first, but then grew stronger with every answer. He told the jury about the debts, the threats, the night we ran for our lives. And when it was my turn, I looked Silas dead in the eye. "You thought you could scare us into silence," I said. "You thought we'd just roll over. But you were wrong." For the first time, I saw fear in his eyes. When the verdict came back, guilty on all counts, Marcus grabbed my hand and squeezed it. "We did it," he whispered. But I knew it wasn't just about winning a case. It was about reclaiming our lives. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed, cameras flashing. Alvarez guided us through the crowd. "You two should consider protection until sentencing," he said. I shook my head. "No. We're done hiding." Marcus nodded. "We're going home." That night, back at Marcus's house, we sat on the porch watching the sunset. For the first time in months, the air felt light. Marcus leaned back in his chair. "You know, Dad, I don't think I've ever been prouder of us." I smiled. "We've been through hell, son. But we came out stronger." He nodded. "Stronger together." As darkness fell, I heard crickets instead of gunfire, wind instead of footsteps. For the first time in a long time, I believed we were safe. Not because the world had gotten any less dangerous, but because we had faced it head-on, together. Weeks later, a letter arrived in the mail. No return address. Inside was a single photo, me and Marcus sitting on the porch that night. On the back, a message written in neat block letters. "You won this round. But some debts are never paid." I felt Marcus looking over my shoulder. He read the words, then set the photo down and smiled faintly. "Let them come," he said. "We'll be ready." I nodded, feeling that same fire rise in my chest. "Yes, we will." And for the first time, I believed it. Hope. You like my story? And which city are you listening from? Let's meet in the comments. If you like the story, you can support me by sending a super thanks so I can keep bringing more stories like this. Thank you so much for your sweet support. I'm looking forward to your comments on the story. On the screen, you can see 2 new life stories that I highly recommend. There's so much more on my channel. Don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next life story.